Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. Today you join me on the banks of the mighty River Trent, and it really is a special place for me. If you've read my book, The Magic of Fishing, you'll know there's at least 2 chapters on this river, and I grew up fishing it really. Living in Sheffield as I did, it was only an hour's drive, and my granddad first brought me here as a very small boy, and it really did blow my mind. It's such a big, open, wild river. Can get really pacey at times and indeed flooded in the winter, but it's a beautiful, rugged place to fish as well. The scenery is majestic, and to hear the sound of the sheep from across the river, the calls of the geese and the sound of waves lapping against the rocks on the shore, it really takes me back to my youth. Not only did I fish it with my granddad, but I went on to fish many matches here with a small club up near Sheffield called Dronfield Woodhouse Sports and Social Club. And believe it or not, I actually fished a match with them this weekend just gone. We're still going. There's only about 15 of us left, but back in the old days, we used to come on here on coach trips and fish all the famous stretches of the river, Burton Joyce, Gunthorpe, and indeed where I've come today, which is near a lovely little village called Hoveringham. Even the drive here got me really excited. The traditional red tiled roofs that you see in this neck of the woods, and some beautiful little villages on the way in. The river itself looks in fantastic nick. And it's a Monday. I've taken the day off work. This is the end of what's been a very special weekend, and it's involved 4 counties. I drove up from my home in Surrey on the Thursday night to stay with my dad in Sheffield, Yorkshire, God's own county of course, and had the fishing match there on Saturday. We also had a brilliant walk, my dad and I, in the PIKE district in Derbyshire, which is right on the edge of Sheffield and really is a beautiful place. We had a glorious sunny day there and a long walk finished by a pint in a pub. And yeah, after a weekend up in Yorkshire, I've stopped off in Nottinghamshire and I'm fishing this brilliant day ticket stretch run by Midland Angling Society. £5 seems an absolute bargain to me, and I can't believe it. It is a weekday, as I say, but I've got the whole stretch to myself. There's not a single other angler here. Just me, the sheep grazing the fields on the far bank, a few swans, some noisy geese, but it's absolute bliss, and it feels like I've come home in a way. The smell of the river, the sound of the river. Remains to be seen whether there's going to be fish to be caught, but I think £5 to fish this is going to turn out to be a real bargain. As always, really pleased to have you along for the session. And hopefully I'll show you how productive this mighty river can be. And you'll see I've got my feeder rod ready to go behind me, up on its feeder arm, and I've actually brought my match gear with me because I was using it at the weekend. It's usually kept up at my dad's, but when I knew I was coming to fish the Trent, I had to bring all my gear and give it the best shot I could. So I'm set up in the water thanks to my modern seat box with its extendable legs, and I've got a big platform next to me as well with all my bait on. Yeah, I'm going to start off on feeder. That's the traditional way on the Trent, while you feed the inside line, which we're going to tackle with stick float tactics. Very traditional trotting, and so fishing the feeder keeps both your hands free and just allows you to keep putting a bit of hemp and a bit of maggot down the inside. It's about 5 foot there, I've plumbed up. Fishing a lovely old John Allerton traditional wooden stick float, cane stem and balsa top. Probably had it for about 30 years since I was a young man, and I'm sure I'll have used it on this river before, so really looking forward to seeing that go down the river again. We have got a bit of a tricky downstream breeze, that's completely standard on the Trent. You do need fairly beefy gear for fishing such a big river, so I'm going with an Acolyte Plus 12-foot feeder rod, and that's paired with a 4000 fairly beefy sized reel, 10-pound main line, and I'll be fishing that with a 2-ounce groundbait feeder, Coarse model, simple running rig with a 2 or 3 inch boom down to a quick change swivel, and then I've got quite a long hook length to start off with, about 3 foot or a good metre down to a size 14. I've mixed up some quite old school ground bait actually, some turbo, which I've not seen or used for quite some time, but when I did see it for sale I thought I've got to have some of that. It's the kind of ground bait I used to use back in the day, and we'll just use it to plug either end of the feeder with a sandwich of casters and hemp, and that'll hopefully pull in some roach or dace. I always like to point everything downstream when I'm fishing a big river like this. Little backhand cast of 4 rod lengths, not fishing too far out. It's a fairly deep stretch this, and that line gets picked up by that flow so quickly. Always leave a bit of a bow in the line, and even with a 3-ounce tip it's pulling well around. I have fished the Trent when it's been really dirty and flooded, chocolate coloured, flows surging down. I've seen everything from full oak trees to dead cow. I always remember the dead cow, 4 big feet sticking up in the air, its hooves pointed towards the sky, and it really was a sight. But most of the time it's a stunning place to be, and I'm really glad to have made it here at least once this summer. Nothing that first cast, but this is really just building the swim up. So little backhand lob, as I say, not fishing far out. And from the amount of time it takes for the feeder to settle, I'd say we're fishing in about somewhere between about 9, 10, maybe 11 foot. Not very far out, and it really does shelve off steeply, the river, in this stretch. Say only about 5 foot on the inside stick line, just a rod or 2 length out. So it'd be nice to fish 2 distinct lines and see what's out there. But the reason for the long hook length or tail of 3 foot is because we're fishing in that deep water, and there really is plenty of flow in the Trent, even when it's not high. There's plenty of dace, small roach, and you can quite often end up catching on the drop as that feeder lands and starts depositing the ground bait, the casters, the hemp. You want your bait fluttering slowly down through the water behind it, and quite often you can get very quick bites here. No indications the first 2 or 3 chucks, but that's quite normal on a natural wild venue like this. It can feel daunting if you're not used to big open water like this, but the old approaches are as effective as ever. By that I mean feeding little and often. Brought plenty of bait with me, about 3 pints of casters. There's a first bite. We may have a first Trent fish for a couple of years, which feels very nice, even if he's not a biggie. What have we got? A lovely little roach. The ground bait's just come out of the feeder as I swung him out, which shows you the bait wasn't even in the water long enough. Just wet my hand. Yeah, the bait wasn't in the water long enough for the feeder to empty, and we got a first bite and a first fish, roach of 2 or 3 ounce, and that's a nice start. But before that fish rudely interrupted me, I was just saying it can feel a bit daunting to fish such a big open water. But if you keep the feed going in little and often, whether that's down on this stick line or indeed making regular casts with the ground bait feeder, the fish will find your feed and will come. There's another little knock. I love that challenge of trying to work out the fish on a venue like this. Get them to feed, get them to compete. And there's a second species and 2 casts. We've got a little dace. Lovely to see that variety already. So yeah, only been fishing 5 or 10 minutes. We've got a couple of fish, a couple of species. We'll keep making these regular casts. You've always got to make them regular if you're catching fish, of course, but even if I wasn't, I'd give the early chucks no more than 3 or 4 minutes, Keep that ground bait going through the water. I'm not actually clipped up because it's such a short cast. And that was an instant bite again on the tip. It's hard to know what to do because the bites are starting to come a bit faster on the tip. But I've now been feeding that float line for a good while. Oh, he's off. That felt a bit better as well. Could have been a perch because it was quite a jagging fight. Yeah, the bites are certainly coming faster on the tip. But I am itching to get on the float, so one more fish as I promised myself. Well, they're not big fish, but it's a great sign of a healthy river to have so many small fish on the feed. I've not been fishing the feeder that long, but they're coming to the bait. I did promise that would be my last on feeder, so I'll hook it up on here. Give that float rod a go. I've already plumbed up, fishing about 5, maybe 6 foot deep, and I'm going traditional shirt button style shotting. So 1 number 8 down by the quick change swivel, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, and so on. So there'll be a nice slow steady fall. I can hold back if I want to. So let's give stick a go. Running down towards that duck, not far out, and that's a tiddler. First cast, they're really lined up because we're giving that feed. And that is a new species for the day. We've had roach and dace, and that was a bleak. Not surprising with all the freebies going in, but that's why I always make sure I've got some hemp, because that'll get past the... Oh, something took that on the drop. Didn't even have time to look up, and it's another bleak. So we may... Dropped him back in. We may have a little bleak problem here, but again, that's why I'm feeding castor and hemp, as well as the maggot. Because they're heavier, denser baits, they get down more quickly than maggots, and they'll hopefully hold some better fish there as well. It doesn't look like bites are going to be a problem, even if it's just bleak to begin with. Lots and lots of bleak. Well, that's why we've not put the feeder away yet. Oh, it's magic though. Even though the fish are tiny, it's magic to watch a stick float go down the Trent again. Happy, happy memories. Always summer. Probably a lot worse weather than I remember, but in my head it's always summer. Long days with my granddad, the smell of his pipe smoke drifting down from the peg above me. Back in the match days, I would have fished even more refined than this, probably just a pound bottom. I've got 2 pound on today, just because there are better fish in the Trent these days. You never know if you might hook a chub or a barbel. And another tiddler. Looks like we're going to have to fish our way through, but that is a dace. That's a dace, not a bleak, so that's encouraging. That's a bit of a better dace. And many times as a teenager I would have been stood in the water rather than sat on a seat box. Get the waders out, as I've done today, just the thigh waders as they were back in the day. And a bait apron. Maggots in the pouch of the bait apron, and wade out as far as you could without falling in. And then you could almost run the stick down off the end of your rod tip. There's a tiny little roach, somehow on double caster. Oh, you may have seen that. Big pike, have a go there. Well, a pike, I don't know how big it was, but this little roach is very lucky to be alive. Another fish jumping out there, being chased by a pike. Looks like this could be a problem on the stick line. And we have a roach and pike situation. Whether it'll let go soon or cut me off, we'll see, but quite a large pike, judging by the swirl, has taken this roach on the way in, and hopefully it might put the pike off, but it really is a biggie. Feels very solid. And I've only got a £2 bottom on, it's a £3 main line, so the chances of us seeing this are almost zero, but hopefully it's taught the pike a lesson and it may clear off after this. I want to backwind a lot. And of course, with balanced tackle you can get away with light lines, but this has now run me all the way through the swim. It could really affect the fishing afterwards, we'll have to see. Can't help but think, wouldn't it be something to get this out, but as it nears the keep net I still can't see that happening. I can see the stick float. I might even get to see the pike at some point. But now he's going off under the feeder rest and taking a lot of line. Just when I thought I was getting the upper hand. Ease him back. At least he's away from the feed at the moment. Just seen him swim past me, and you know what? I think I saw the maggot in the corner of his mouth. He could actually be hooked in the scissors. Wouldn't this be something? A real river monster. But again, a long way from getting him out, and he really has probably ruined my swim. Whoa. Whoa. Right by the keep net. I think he is hooked, you know. He'd have come off by now if not. That means there's a chance of landing on £2 bottom. I've just seen the maggot again. There's probably not much left of the roach or the dace. This is one fish I did not expect today. Let's have a second go. Oh, he swum past the net into my feet. Oh dear, we've got a problem now. There we go, he's tired out. Wow, we've got him, folks. What a beast. What a beast. Well, believe it or not, folks, that is just a double figure pike from the Trent on £2 bottom and stick float gear. Really long and lean, but got some serious weight to him. £10, 4 ounces. That's one of my better pike. I don't often go fishing for them, but yeah, he's a real old warrior. Some split fins and it's really dark along the back. Look at those teeth. That is a proper unexpected catch. There he goes. Oh. Now stay away from my stick peg. Well, after the drama of that pike, I've gone back on the feeder. I just had a bite, in fact, just to let the stick line settle back down after that pike was charging all over it. And I'll keep the feed going in just like I was before. That's a nice plump roach back on the feeder. Just goes to show not only are the species and the size of the fish hard to predict on the Trent, but you can catch them on all different methods, and no doubt if I'd brought my pole or decided to fish waggler a bit further out, I'd be catching two. It feels like it's in really good health, which is so nice to see when I've not been on it for a couple of years. Well, we've been doing quite a bit of chopping and changing so far, but now I've given the inside stick line a bit of a rest and a bit more feed after that surprise pike. We've had a couple more on the feeder. It's time to go back on the stick, and I must say it's much easier fishing the stick since I've put the feeder rod to one side and moved the feeder arm out the way. I've been a bit lazy before, just in case I needed to go back on the feeder, but I feel a bit more committed to the float now. Oh, another pike. This is incredible. We might have to go back on the feeder at this rate. I say I was talking to two chaps while I was on the feeder last time, and they said it's not uncommon to get 2 or 3 in a day. It just shows you how many silverfish there are. Come back to me in a while and we'll see whether it lets go, cuts me off, or I manage a second pike within an hour. It's been on for some time. Maybe properly hooked again, but we'll have to see. There's still plenty of time to lose this. Again, took it right off the top, and it's no wonder the float fishing's a little tricky. Oh, it's taking me right down the river now. We used to say when we were kids it's like being attached to the back of a boat. When we hooked a big barbel or a carp that we were just incapable of stopping, either emptied our reels or snapped our line. And got a similar feeling this time round, although I know what it is. There's a lot of line needed to be regained if we are to get him out. One thing that is making me think he's hooked is I saw a poor old little silver, looked like a dace or maybe a roach, float up to the top further down the peg, and that may be the bait that he's actually, well, it's not really bait, is it, but that may be the original fish that I hooked. He's spat out, and he is still fair and squarely hooked, but this feels possibly even bigger than the last. It's absolutely solid, and my right arm is starting to get very tired. It's, oh, you can just see its back coming out right in the distance. I would actually like to get this out now because it's taken up a good 15 minutes of the session. Oh, he's just about tiring. Quickly try and work him along. It's a big fish. Obviously not what we came for, but as a keen all-round angler, you can't help but be fascinated by big fish like this and want to see it, want to hold it briefly. That's if there's any way of landing it. You can probably just see the float now. Oh yeah. I mean, he's not a monster by pike angler standards, but for a fish hooked on a stick float and 2 pound hook length, this is ridiculous. Proper crocodile. I can barely move him. Just trying to drag him. The line is singing. Now we might be coming to the question of how the hell we land him. He's definitely fairly hooked. I've just seen it. Oh, just seen the maggot and the hook in the corner. Surely he can't go again. Even crocodiles get tired. Oh, he's a biggie. Really would like to get him out after all this. Like a whale. Whoa! Absolute drama. Whoa! swum into the net, he has. Incredible, we've got him. Well, this, folks, is something else. This is a 13.5 pound pike. I think that's my PB. Obviously can't really count it because I wasn't fishing for it, but I'm not a big-headed bugger, but I think I deserve some kind of a reward for landing this on a 2 pound bottom to a size 16 hook. What a crocodile. What an absolute monster. And he has been eating too many roach, dace, bleak for his own good. But you've seen how hard he's fought, and me. It's a beautifully marked fish, and they're quite fragile things, especially in summer, so that is the magic of fishing. It's a story for the grandkids one day, but let's get him back. Folks, what an absolutely bonkers afternoon. I can't quite believe it's 5:30. Where's the time go? Playing pike, of course. I think if you're an all-round angler like me, you've got to love that kind of stuff though. Stuff of legend. To land 2 pike, well into the teens, that second one, and just on stick float gear and a light rod, it's incredible. Incredible to me anyway, and there'll be stories to tell mates and photos to look back on. Now I've just got to have a rest, regain my strength, like that pike who's now swum off strongly after a long rest, and work out whether I go back on the float or the feeder. And while I catch my breath, you know I'm not sponsored, but I've got to give a shout out at this point to Midi, the low-vis hook length, 2.6, okay, so it's not 2 pound, 2.6, but 0.10 millimetre line has just landed a 13.5 pound pike, so I'll be replacing the hook length just to be safe, but incredible stuff. Well, whether it'll last long or not is another thing, but I had to go back on the stick line after landing that pike just to see what might still be there, what might actually come on the feed. And the answer is a beautiful little gudgeon. But yeah, now I've removed, oh sorry, now I've removed 2 pike from the swim. I'd like to think it might switch on a little bit with the silvers, but who knows. We'll give it a bit longer. It's lovely with the late afternoon sun slanting onto that float tip. I can really see it much more clearly now. Bright, fiery orange. But I hope for any of you who are like me and absolutely love the Trent or have fond memories of it, but haven't been for a while, I hope you're enjoying this, because I know I'll look back on it when I can't be here or haven't been for a while. It's a special place, especially in the evening, late afternoon and evening. It's a place I so often had to leave about now, tired and slimy after another club match, maybe feeling jubilant because I'd done well for once, or maybe ruining all the missed opportunities, trying to find out that's a better fish. Oh, and he's off. Trying to find out how the older guys had caught their winning weight. And the coach would often lumber away from the fields with me looking back at the river in the early evening sunlight, just dreaming that I could stay for another few hours. Now I'm a grown man with my own car, and a day off work, that's exactly what I can do, of course, and I'll probably stay till the light's fading, even though I've got a couple of hours or more to drive back. Well, that is something I completely deserve for going back on the float. So this is the hat trick, if indeed it is another crocodile. And this day ticket should come with a health warning. This is not good for your heart or your right arm if you're right-handed. Absolutely knackered after the last one, and here we go again. Oh, well folks, it's not the same fish. Call me blasé, I've not bothered to weigh this one. It's probably 5 or 6 pound maybe. Quite chunky compared to the first one I had, but not as big as that last. But this is a hat trick of pike while fishing the stick float. I think it's time to go on the feeder. That's really made for a memorable day. Won't forget this Trent trip for a long time. I'm sure it'll become one of the many tales I have to tell about the great river. I just didn't quite expect this much pike activity, but never had a fish grabbed while fishing the feeder, earlier on. So the only problem we've got now really is that we've not built this feeder line up at all throughout the day. It did have some bait earlier on, of course, so that's no bad thing. There might be a few fish waiting out there. Actually not a bad fish. A net's overkill, but just to be on the safe side. It's a nice roach, that. And that's a really encouraging sign, having not fed out there. Beautiful little roach. And just look at the evening sun now lighting up those sandbanks. That's a clunking dace. That was another one on the drop. It's what I was describing earlier when I started fishing the feeder. You fish a long hook length. Pulled out of that one, but the tip was going absolutely crazy. The sun's really warm on my back and that downstream wind's really dropping. It so often happens on the Trent. There's another fish on very quickly. Looks like another dace. But yeah, the number of days I've fished the Trent and it's gone nice and calm by the end. What's this? Oh boy. Folks, it's a perch. We've done it. Lovely, lovely marked stripey. That's incredible. We've had pike, perch, roach, dace, bleak. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten anything else. Probably have. Pretty much every species under the sun except chub or bream. Oh, gudgeon. Don't forget the humble gudgeon. And that's part of the beauty of fishing big natural waters like the Trent. You just don't know what is going to pull the tip round next. And there we go again. Single caster. That's what they want, which is what they've been fed all day, so it's hardly surprising, but that's another lovely dace in the evening sun. Lovely fish, that's best yet. It really is almost want to chuck now, as so often happens with evening fishing. Really nice dace. Got to say, even the thought of a 2-hour drive to come couldn't dampen my mood. It's absolutely fantastic fishing. The bites are coming almost as soon as the feeder lands. And okay, they're not huge chub and barbel, but a nice roach, dace, another smaller dace there. And again, in this kind of current, this kind of depth of water, they really do pull the tip round. Oh, that's a nice roach. I'm a happy man. Back on the Trent. Still losing fish. Dropping that one in the water. But a bite of chuck on the tip. Evening sun. Back on the river I love. Grew up fishing. It's, yeah, really, really special is all I can say. And that, oops, is the best roach yet. So now it's time to pack up, get back in the car and drive south. But it'll be great to get home after a long weekend away, and I'll be driving down a happy man. All that remains for me to say is, if you're new to the magic of fishing or haven't yet subscribed, hit that button. Come on, it means a lot, and there's plenty more videos like this. To all you faithful followers, as always, big love. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon on the bank.